I was lying in the guest room after my wife's funeral when I heard my stepdaughter's voice through the thin wall. She was on the phone, and her words cut through my grief like a knife. "Once Dad signs the house over, we're putting him in Sunset Pines," Lisa said. I could hear the smile in her voice. "The market's insane right now. After Mark's commission, we're looking at clearing $600,000. Easy." I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling Margaret and I had painted together 15 years ago. The same house where we'd built a life, where I'd tried to be a good stepfather to a woman who apparently saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to her inheritance. After 20 years of being this family's ATM, they still had no idea who I really was. My name is Robert Chen. I'm 68 years old, and until 3 days ago, I was married to the love of my life. Margaret passed away on a Tuesday morning, quietly, in her sleep. The doctor said it was a massive stroke. I said it was a broken heart, but I kept that to myself. I met Margaret 22 years ago at a community center where I volunteered to teach basic financial literacy to seniors. She was there taking care of her mother, who'd been scammed out of her savings by some telemarketer. Margaret had this fire in her eyes when she talked about protecting vulnerable people. I fell in love with that fire. She had a daughter from her first marriage. Lisa was 18 then. Away at college on a full scholarship, Margaret had worked 2 jobs to help fund. I never tried to replace Lisa's father. I just tried to be someone Margaret could count on, someone who'd help carry the load. Over the years, I helped Lisa with things here and there. Co-signed her first apartment lease when she couldn't qualify on her own. Lent her $5,000 for her wedding, which she promised to pay back but never did. Helped with the down payment on her and Mark's first condo. Margaret always said I was too generous, but I told her it was what family did. I retired from my accounting firm at 62 with a decent pension and some solid investments. Margaret and I lived modestly. We liked it that way. Our house in the Sunset District was small, but paid off. We drove old cars. We took walks instead of expensive vacations. People who didn't know us probably thought we were scraping by. That was exactly what I wanted them to think. Now, listening to Lisa plot my future through a wall that was apparently too thin to contain her greed, I realized Margaret had been right all along. She'd tried to tell me, in those last few months. "Robert," she'd said one night, "I need you to promise me something. Anything," I'd told her. "After I'm gone, test Lisa. See who she really is. If she shows love, if she honors my memory by taking care of you, then she deserves everything. But if she shows greed," Margaret had gripped my hand with surprising strength, "then you know what to do," I'd promised. And now, 72 hours after we'd buried my wife, I was getting my answer. Through the wall, Lisa's voice continued. "I talked to that lawyer Dad uses. The one from his firm. Real old school guy. Probably hasn't updated his methods since the 80s. He said the house is in Mom's name, so it goes through probate. Should be simple." A male voice responded, muffled. "Mark? Her husband? No. He doesn't know anything," Lisa said. "You think Dad understands estate law? The man balanced checkbooks for 40 years. He's probably relieved someone else is handling things. Besides, we've already started the paperwork for Sunset Pines. It's actually really nice. They have bingo on Thursdays." She laughed. Actually laughed. I sat up slowly, my joints creaking in the quiet room. She was smiling at me, that knowing smile she'd get when she was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. "I know, baby," I whispered to the photo. "I know." The next morning, I played my part perfectly. I shuffled into the kitchen in my old bathrobe, looking every bit the grief-stricken widower. Lisa was already there, making coffee. She'd spent the night, supposedly to keep me company, more likely to make sure I didn't do anything with the house before she could implement her plan. "Morning, Dad," she said, her voice syrupy with false concern. "Did you sleep okay?" "Not really," I said truthfully. "Keep thinking about your mother." "I know." "Me too." She poured me coffee without asking if I wanted any. "We should probably talk about some practical things. I know it's hard, but we need to think about your living situation." I took the coffee with shaking hands. Not hard to fake at my age. My living situation? Well, this house. It's so big for just you. And Mom always worried about you on those stairs. Remember when you fell last year? I hadn't fallen. I'd tripped over Margaret's cat. But I nodded anyway. I was thinking, Lisa continued, maybe it's time to look at some senior communities, places where you'd have people around, activities, medical care, on-site. I actually found this great place called Sunset Pines. That's thoughtful of you, I said carefully. And of course, we'd need to sell the house to pay for it. But don't worry about any of that. Mark and I will handle everything. You just focus on healing. Mark walked in then, phone in hand, already dressed in his real estate agent blazer. He gave me the kind of smile sharks probably give seals. Robert, how you holding up, champ? I hated being called champ. He knew that. He'd been calling me that for 5 years. I'm managing, I said. That's the spirit. Listen, I've been running some numbers, and the market is crazy right now. This neighborhood is hot. I really think we could move this place fast and get you somewhere safe and comfortable. I hadn't really thought about moving, I said. Of course not, Lisa interjected quickly. You're grieving. That's why you have us. Let us carry this burden for you, Dad. It's what Mom would have wanted. Margaret would have wanted me to throw them both into the street, but I kept that thought to myself. I suppose I should talk to a lawyer, I said. Lisa and Mark exchanged a glance. Quick, but I caught it. Actually, why don't you let me handle that? Lisa said. He said he'd be happy to help sort out Mom's estate. Said it should be pretty straightforward since the house is in her name. Tom Bradshaw. 73 years old, 6 months from retirement, and about as sharp as a bag of wet mice. Perfect choice. If you wanted someone who wouldn't ask hard questions, that's kind of you, I said. But I actually already spoke to someone. The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. You did? Mark's smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. Yesterday, actually. Called an old colleague, Daniel Wu. He specializes in estate planning. I wanted to understand my options. Dad, that's really not necessary, Lisa said, her voice tight. We don't need to complicate things with multiple lawyers. Tom can handle everything. Oh, I'm sure he can. Daniel just wanted to review some documents with me. Make sure I understand what Margaret set up. Another look between them. This one lasted longer. What documents? Mark asked. Estate documents, trusts, that sort of thing. I'm sure it's all standard stuff. Daniel said he'd come by later this week. Lisa set down her coffee cup a little too hard. Dad, I don't think you need to rush into anything. Why don't you take some time to rest? Clear your head, and then we can all sit down together and figure things out. That's probably wise, I agreed. I am awfully tired. I shuffled back to the guest room and closed the door. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Daniel Wu. They took the bait. Get ready. His response was immediate. Already preparing. This is going to be good. Daniel Wu wasn't just an old colleague. He was my best friend, a man I'd worked with for 30 years, and one of the best estate attorneys in San Francisco. He also happened to be the attorney who'd helped me set up Margaret's estate plan 5 years ago. The plan Margaret had insisted on when she started getting sick. The plan Lisa knew nothing about. Over the next 3 days, I watched them work. And they were good. I'll give them that. Smooth. Practiced. Like they'd done this before. Mark brought over a real estate appraiser, introduced as just a friend getting a feel for the market. The friend spent 2 hours measuring rooms and taking photos while I sat in the living room pretending to doze. Lisa found brochures for Sunset Pines scattered strategically around the house. Full-color photos of smiling seniors playing cards, doing yoga, eating in a cafeteria that looked like a hospital with better lighting. Each brochure had little notes in the margins. Affordable, 24-hour care. You'd love it here, Dad. They even brought Jennifer, my biological daughter, into it. Though Jennifer, bless her, saw right through them. Jennifer stopped by the 4th day after the funeral. She hugged me hard, and I could feel her shaking. Dad, Lisa called me. she said quietly. She said, "You're thinking about moving? They want to put me in a home," I said. "What? No, you can't. This is your house. You and Mom." "I know, honey. But Lisa says it's for the best." Jennifer pulled back, her face red. "Lisa says?" "Dad, since when do you let Lisa tell you what to do? She's just looking out for me. She's looking out for herself." Jennifer lowered her voice. "Dad, I love my sister, but something's been off with her lately. She keeps asking me about Mom's will, about what you're planning to do with the house. And Mark." She shook her head. "I don't trust him." "What has Lisa said to you?" "She told me that you're not thinking clearly, that you need help making decisions. She said Mark found a great facility and that I should support the move. When I said maybe you weren't ready, she got angry, said I was being selfish, that I didn't understand what was best for you." I patted Jennifer's hand. "Don't worry about me. I'm tougher than I look. I know you are. But promise me you won't sign anything without running it by me first." "I promise." After Jennifer left, I sat in Margaret's chair and thought about the last real conversation I'd had with my wife. It was 3 months before she died. We'd been sitting in this exact spot, watching the sunset through the bay window. "I found something," Margaret had said. Her voice was calm, but I knew her well enough to hear the tremor underneath. "Found what?" She handed me a stack of papers. Bank statements, loan documents, all in her name. All signed with her signature. Except they weren't her signatures. "I never took out a reverse mortgage," Margaret said. "I would never do that without talking to you." I looked at the documents. $72,000, withdrawn over 2 years in monthly increments of $3,000. The signatures looked like Margaret's, but I'd seen enough forged documents in my career to spot the tells. The M was too angular. The loop in the G too perfect. "Lisa," Margaret said. "It wasn't a question. You can't know that. Robert. Who else had access to my personal information? Who else would know my mother's maiden name? My social security number? Who else would benefit?" I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend the girl I'd helped raise, but the evidence was there, cold and irrefutable. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Margaret was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I want to know if she'll come clean, if she'll apologize and make it right. And if she doesn't," she looked at me with those fierce eyes, "then I want to make sure she can't hurt anyone else, especially you." We'd set a trap. A careful, legal trap. Margaret changed her will and set up an irrevocable trust with me as trustee. The house went into the trust. Her other assets went into the trust. Everything protected, untouchable, even by Margaret herself if she'd wanted to change her mind. Then we waited to see if Lisa would confess. She never did. Not even when Margaret got sick. Not even at the end. Now, on the 5th day after Margaret's death, it was time to spring the trap. Daniel Wu arrived at exactly 2 in the afternoon. He was a small man with silver hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. Lisa and Mark were already there, having stopped by to check on me. They both tensed when they saw Daniel's briefcase. "Mr. Chen," Daniel said formally, "thank you for agreeing to meet." "Of course," I said. I'd put on my best suit, the one Margaret had bought me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look official. "Please, sit down. Lisa. Mark. This is Daniel Wu. He's helping me understand Margaret's estate." "I didn't realize we needed outside help," Lisa said, her smile brittle. "I thought Tom Bradshaw was handling things." "Mr. Bradshaw is welcome to attend," Daniel said pleasantly. "In fact, I believe he should be here for this conversation. Shall we wait for him?" "He's not coming," Mark said quickly. "We didn't think." "That's fine. We can proceed without him." Daniel opened his briefcase and pulled out several folders. "I've reviewed the estate documents, and there are some important items we need to discuss." Lisa leaned forward. "Is there a problem with probate?" "Actually, there won't be any probate. You could have heard a pin drop." "I'm sorry?" Lisa's voice had lost its warmth. The house isn't part of Mrs. Chen's probate estate. It's held in the Chen family irrevocable trust, established 5 years ago. Mr. Chen is the trustee. Mark's face went pale. That can't be right. The house was in Margaret's name. It was, Daniel agreed, until 5 years ago, when it was transferred to the trust. The transfer was properly recorded with the county. I have the documents here, if you'd like to review them. He slid a folder across the coffee table. Lisa grabbed it, her hands shaking slightly as she flipped through the pages. I don't understand, she said. Mom never said anything about a trust. Mrs. Chen was very particular about her estate planning, Daniel said. She wanted to make sure her assets were protected and that her wishes would be carried out exactly as she intended. Protected from what? Mark demanded. Daniel's expression didn't change. From anyone who might try to exploit Mr. Chen or misuse the assets. Lisa's face went red. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply explaining the legal structure Mrs. Chen put in place. I'd been quiet through this whole exchange, playing the confused old man. Now I spoke up. Daniel, I'm still not clear on one thing. What about the reverse mortgage? Lisa's head snapped toward me. What reverse mortgage? The one taken out in Margaret's name 2 years ago, Daniel said smoothly. The one that's been paying out $3,000 a month for 24 months. The silence was deafening. I don't know what you're talking about, Lisa stammered. Daniel pulled out another folder. This one was thicker. I have all the documents here. Loan application, approval, payment records, and quite interestingly, I have the signature samples. He looked up at Lisa. Would you like to explain how your mother's signature appears on documents for a loan she never applied for? Mark stood up. We don't have to listen to this. Sit down, Mr. Holloway. Daniel's voice was suddenly cold. Unless you'd prefer to have this conversation at the police station. The police? Lisa's voice cracked. Dad, what is this? What's going on? I met her eyes for the first time since Daniel arrived. Your mother knew, Lisa. She knew about the forged signatures. She knew about the money. I didn't. She found the first statement 2.5 years ago, I continued. She spent weeks trying to convince herself there was some explanation. But she knew the truth. She just wanted to give you a chance to come clean. Tears were running down Lisa's face now. Dad, please. You had 2.5 years. Your mother got sick. She was dying, and you never said a word. Not even when she was in the hospital. Not even at the end. I wanted to, Lisa sobbed. I was going to, but Mark said, don't. Mark's voice was sharp. Don't say another word. Daniel cleared his throat. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway, you have 2 options. Option 1. You pay back the $72,000 you stole, plus interest, on a payment plan we'll establish. You'll also sign an agreement releasing any claims to the trust assets and agreeing to no contact with Mr. Chen. And option 2? Mark asked. Option 2. I take this file to the district attorney's office, and we let the criminal justice system handle it. Forgery is a felony in California. Elder financial abuse is a felony. With the amount involved and the pattern of behavior, you're both looking at significant prison time. Lisa was full-on crying now, mascara running down her face. Mark, we have to pay it back. We have to make this right. With what money? Mark hissed. We don't have 72 grand lying around. Then we'll sell the condo. We'll get loans. I don't care. I'm not going to prison. Mark looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Lisa's face stopped him. To decide? About 30 seconds. To pay? We can work out a schedule, but I'll need first payment within 30 days and the full amount within 18 months. Fine, Mark spat. We'll do it. We'll sign your damn agreement. Daniel pulled out pre-prepared documents. As Lisa and Mark signed, their hands shaking, I thought about Margaret. About the woman who'd taught me that love doesn't mean being a doormat. That protecting yourself isn't the same as being cruel. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices. After they left, Daniel packed up his briefcase. That went about as well as could be expected. Thank you, I said. For everything. Margaret was a good woman. She deserved better than this. She got exactly what she wanted in the end. She got the truth. 6 months passed. 6 months in which I slowly transformed the house Margaret and I had built together into something new. Jennifer helped me sort through Margaret's things, keeping what mattered, donating what didn't. We found old photos, letters, memories of a life well lived. Lisa and Mark made their payments on time. I'd hear, through mutual acquaintances, that they'd sold their condo, moved into a small apartment. Mark had taken a second job. Lisa was working retail. They were learning what it meant to earn things instead of taking them. I didn't take pleasure in their struggles, but I didn't feel guilty either. Margaret had taught me that too. Consequences aren't cruelty. They're clarity. One afternoon, I got a letter. Lisa's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. "Dad," it began. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what you and Mom were trying to teach me. I understand that I was wrong, that I was selfish, that I let Mark convince me that you were just an obstacle, when you were actually the best father I could have asked for. I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I hurt you and Mom. I'm sorry I wasted my last years with her being greedy instead of grateful. I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know." I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday we'd rebuild something. But not today. Today, I had other plans. Jennifer met me at the house with the contractors. We were converting the basement into a community meeting space. Free financial literacy classes for seniors, taught by volunteers from my old firm. Estate planning workshops. Support groups for people dealing with scams and exploitation. Margaret's dream, brought to life. "Mom would love this," Jennifer said, looking at the plans. "She already does," I said, and I believed it. That night, I sat in Margaret's chair and looked at her photo. 22 years since I'd met her. 20 years since we'd married. 5 years since she'd discovered the betrayal. 3 months since I'd held her hand while she took her last breath. I kept my promise, I told her. I tested her, and I protected myself. Just like you asked. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt full. Full of memories, yes, but also full of purpose. Full of the kind of love that doesn't fade, even after death. I'd learned a lot in my 68 years. I'd learned that wealth isn't about what you have, but what you can protect. That family isn't always about blood, but about who shows up when it matters. That grief and justice can exist in the same heart without contradicting each other. Most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be anyone's victim. Not because you're cruel, but because you respect yourself enough to demand better. Margaret had taught me that. And in teaching me, she'd given me the greatest gift of all. The strength to survive her loss, and the wisdom to honor her memory by becoming the person she always knew I could be. Not a pushover. Not a victim. Just a man who loved his wife enough to keep his promises, even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones.